It's been about 2 years into the pandemic now, and I've spent most of my time indoors during those 2 years. It's really weird seeing the way we used to interact change so suddenly. And I miss the way things used to be. Recently, I've been starting to miss going to amusement parks. I mean, even before COVID, I didn't really go to amusement parks regularly anyway. Although some are open now, amusement parks are really crowded areas. I don't want to catch nothing while I'm there, so I'd rather stay at home. So, I did the next best thing. I played Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. Why 2, you ask? Because it's the one I played in my youth. As I played through it, I thought it would be fun to analyze and break down the game. What I mean by breakdown is analyzing the things that make up the game, like the mechanics and the experience, and the learning difficulty. I'll go over all those things more in the video. But before I get into it, I want to make it clear that this is not a review for the game. Instead, I'm looking at how the game is designed overall. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let me start with a quick summary. Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 is a top-down point-and-click game developed by Chris Sawyer and released on October 15th, 2002, as a sequel to the first Roller Coaster Tycoon. His Tycoon game series was inspired by Sid Meier's Railroad Tycoon, a game in which you build and manage a railroad company. Besides the roller coaster games, he developed Transport Tycoon, Chris Sawyer's Locomotion, and many more remakes of the games. Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 is built around its core experience. That experience is the feeling of owning and running an amusement park. In order for players to achieve that, all mechanics need to relate back to that experience. The core mechanic of the game is building. It relates back to that experience, as the mechanic allows you to build rides or other establishments to make your park as desired. The park objective encourages players to build a fun park in order to reach their goals. Each park has a unique goal that the player must meet. For example, some of these goals include reaching a park value of X by date X, or pay off your loan of X amount of money, or have X amount of guests in your park. The challenge that the players face contribute to the experience of running the park as well. Speaking of challenges, there are many obstacles that you can encounter along the way of creating your park, like money. You can't do much if you're low on it, or in the negatives. Loans and disappointed guests can also be an obstacle for the players. Although it may not be desired, these obstacles demonstrate the hardships of owning a park. All the mechanics in some way relate back to the core experience that Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 establishes. This is good because you want to feel like you're running an amusement park, in a game about making amusement parks. Let's move on to how the game presents itself at first. The game starts you off on the main menu. From here, players can decide on starting a new game, loading a save file, watching a tutorial, or going through the settings. The tutorial option opens up 3 individual tutorials. These include a beginner's tutorial that demonstrates some of the basic options, a custom rides tutorial that demonstrates how to build one ride from scratch, and a roller coaster tutorial that demonstrates how to build a roller coaster from scratch. These are the only tutorials available in the game for the player. From here on out, the player is on their own. It's worth noting that during any time in the tutorial, if the player clicks the mouse button, the tutorial will stop and the player will take control, which I suppose is nice if you want to immediately try out what you've learned. Otherwise, I don't see a use to it. However, based on how much you can do and keep track of in the game, the tutorials aren't nearly enough. It's about enough to get you through some of the beginner levels, but nowhere near enough to make you understand everything the game has to offer. New players may have trouble navigating their way to find out how much debt they owe, or customizing a ride that isn't a roller coaster. Many rides have different rules and properties after all. Now, let's move on to the rehearsal, experimentation, and application. These are used to have the player put what they learned into practice, and build upon them. Typically, games will present these moments in an orderly fashion. However, that's not the case for Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. Once the player starts up a park, what they do is up to them. They can use what they've learned to assist them or not. The player has the freedom to do as they please. One could argue that the park difficulty could be considered as the rehearsal, experimentation, and application. However, all parks have different objectives that need to be met and could require a different set of skills or strategies in order to reach them. Strategies or skills that the player might not have used or worked on in their previous park. The game relies heavily on the player to understand the game and its mechanics on their own, without a proper guide. Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 does a great job by making their players feel like they're actually running an amusement park. It gives them the good and the bad, like creating cool rides and owing money, interest rates, and maintaining a good image to the public. However, if you don't really care about that, you can always just drown your guests. Overall, the game is not very beginner friendly. The tutorials will only take you so far. The game relies on the players to figure the rest out. Instead, I think the game would be better off with a short tutorial upon opening a park for the first time that explains the objective and how to reach it. There could be various objectives that appear and build off of the previous objective upon completing them, like get 1,000 guests in your park by October year 2. Then the next objective can build off of that and be something like get 2,000 guests in your park with a rating of 50,000 by October year 3, and so on. It would also give the game clear rehearsal, experimentation, and application moments. Despite the poor tutorials, Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 is a unique and old-school game to play. If you like the Roller Coaster Tycoon genre and you're looking for something similar, you might want to check out some of these games. And if you enjoyed this video, it would mean a lot to me if you liked this video and subscribed. You can check out some of my other videos similar to this one right here. Thanks for watching.